Here we are, week 7 of EDU 580, our last content week together, believe it or not. Today we are ending up with simply and don't forget the parents. We have talked about all the issues in secondary, not all of the issues, of course, but many of the compelling issues in secondary education and what it means to be a secondary educator. So I thought we would wrap this up, hopefully wrap it up in a sort of a light way with the idea of the parents. Studies show, and you know this for sure, that parent involvement drastically drops in the secondary years, drastically drops. In fact, a Harvard study recently said that over 66% of secondary parents have no personal one-on-one interaction with the teacher throughout the year. That's pretty big. However, that same Harvard study showed that it is extremely important to have social capital for students. What I mean by social capital, a lot of times we just think it's the parent involvement, but really studies show it's the social capital that goes behind it. And social capital is the idea, speaking more sociologically, that you have a support system, that you have a support system behind you. And that support system is bridged between the home and the school. A great example of social capital is, let's say you are applying for a job. There's a new position that you want in a new school district, and you happen to know the a teacher in the school district, and that teacher can refer you. That's social capital. That gives you a leg up on the competition. Even more so, let's say that you know the superintendent in that school district very, very well. That's some serious social capital. So it's the idea that parents who are involved in schools and teachers who are reaching out to parents, it creates social capital for a child. And with that, their chances of success are greater. And that's the reason for our talk this week. I don't think I'm going to say a single thing that's really profound this week. It's really just us taking a look and reflecting a little bit on our practices and just stepping back and really saying, how are we doing with this one? Like I said, study after study is showing that the social capital factor of having family engagement is huge in the classroom, but studies aren't simply saying it. We're also seeing it all over the media. We're also seeing it from our politicians. Case in point, let's just take a look right here.
Educators, authorities, and experts claim that our public education system is in the midst of a crisis. While they don't often agree on the solution, their prescriptions have one common ingredient: family engagement.
And so the question is whether all of us, as citizens and as parents, are willing to do what's necessary to give every child a chance to succeed. That responsibility begins not in our classrooms, but in our homes.
A very important part of the educational process is to involve the parents.
To really involve parents and the entire community in ensuring that public education improves.
If we can have parental involvement, that's huge and terrific.
It is well documented and plain common sense that parental involvement in a child's education boosts student learning and improves both behavior and student attendance.
Unfortunately, there are still studies coming out that show that many parents feel that the total responsibility for the education of their students is the schools and the teacher. And that's not true.
There are no excuses. Because when you are in the building, boys see a good example, girls see a good example, and children will change their behavior just because they know you.
When I walk into a school where the parent volunteers, community partners, I can just feel the difference in the building.
Our highest achieving kids always have parental support. What does that tell us? We've got to get parental support for more of our kids.
You've got to let your kid know you're invested. So when they come home, ask them, can I see your homework? Ask them, what did they do in school?
So that piece, that collaboration piece that I talked about before, more and more and more, I see that as the most important factor of helping kids learn.
Schools can't do it all by themselves, okay? And if we don't find ways to engage parents, then we're not going to get it done.
My mom showed
I'm going to just rewind there and just listen to that last man. Let's listen to again what he says. Here we go.
It all by themselves. Okay? And if we don't find ways to engage parents, then we're not going to get it done.
All right, and that is the reason for today's discussion. It's the idea of what can we do? What can we do to get it done with the parents? I know it sounds kind of a little bit like a bummer, but if I were teaching a parenting class, this would look very, very different because without a doubt, and many of you have said this, without a doubt, the parents must be involved. They absolutely must be involved. And if it were a parenting class, I'd be talking all about the parents and how they need to come in and support their teachers and know their teachers. However, this is a graduate education course where I'm talking to teachers. So today we are going to look at some suggestions of how you as an educator, how we as educators can do our very best to build a bridge to parents, to get parents to become involved in their students' education, to get families to become involved in their student education. So I sort of titled this, we build it, maybe they'll come. I might be a little bit Pollyanna-ish this week and a little bit spoonful of sugar and a little bit, well, we can just do this. I recognize that's not the case. I recognize that parent interactions can be difficult, and I recognize that that is a huge frustration for you. I read an NEA study that said it ranked always in the top 5 frustrations is that parents are not involved and teachers are left to parent as well. As a parent, I apologize for that. That stinks. No teacher should ever have to say that. However, there is truth to that. So what we're going to do this week is simply hopefully set a little bit light, but just look at what we can do to refine, to fine-tune our parent-teacher practices. I also know from being in a secondary setting that it's very easy to go very negative when it comes to parents. I remember the faculty room discussions. I remember getting kids on my roster and going, oh no, now I've got to deal with that parent. I remember the pre-meeting before the IEP meeting where there was a bunch of rolling of eyes. I remember sitting in IEP meetings and there being rollings of eyes when parents weren't looking. And I remember parent-teacher conference night. To be honest, I remember my first parent-teacher conference night realizing I have been not prepared in the least to do this. I had, college classes on Bloom's taxonomy, and I had college classes on the legality of certain things in education. And I thought to myself, why didn't anyone ever teach me how to do the parent-teacher conference? So I know all of you have done these things, so it's just going to be us taking a look at some of the things that we can do to perhaps, if we build a bridge, perhaps they will come. So in part 2, we'll start taking a look at a bit of these guidelines.